Hi, I'm Alex and welcome to this video. After making triple the Rome achievement video, I got curious about the new Russian missions and decided to make this simple World Conquest video guide while playing around with the new Russian mission tree. I will be going for what is called one-tag conquest. This means only myself and my colonial nations will remain at the end of the game. This time I will not go for a one faith, because I want to play with the new Russian revolution mechanics. And honestly, Russia is not the best country to do one faith with. I'd rather make a separate video on one faith, one culture with another nation. This simple guide will include 4 stages. First, secure your home base with a twist. Second, stabilize and build up. Third, address the bottlenecks of your expansion. And finally, 4, Blobageddon. I will not be tryharding and speedrunning. I prefer to relax and enjoy my game as I ponder my next steps over a cup of tea. I'm still experimenting and learning as I launch this new channel. I love interacting with you guys and getting your suggestions and advice. If you like videos like this, you will make my day if you give this video a like and subscribe. Okay, enough intro, let's dive in. As of 1.35, the Russian game starts with what is called the Tartar yoke, which is an obligation to pay some income to the Golden Horde. In my case, it's between 25 and 35 ducats a year. So the cheap burger loans from the estates is a must. Another must is religious diplomats for the extra diplomatic reputation, to help us with our ambitious alliance request. I want to give you a massive word of caution. Now pay attention to this. Reddit is full of people making this mistake and not knowing how to get out of it. Do not take the early serfdom privilege. I repeat, don't take the early serfdom privilege. If you do, you will not be able to modernize. Instead, simply take the increased peasant freedom privilege. On the surface of it, early serfdom gives you a lot of green stuff, so it looks very positive. But it's a trap. Nowhere does it tell you that you will have minus 0.5 monthly progress on your eventual modernization slider, making your modernization rest at 0 all the time. In the past, you used to be able to get out of it by taking the parliament government reform, but in the latest patch, Paradox has killed it. The increased peasant freedom greets you with a bunch of debuffs, including less manpower, but honestly, as Russia, you will not have manpower problems. Look, when eventually the modernization slider unlocks, the increased peasant freedom will give you a massive progress boost. The rest of the estate setup is standard, we just want their loyalty to grow. In this game I want to ally and royal marry Burgundy to play in the Burgundian inheritance lottery. It's definitely not a must for a world conquest, but if it does happen, it will help us tame Europe faster. I am geographically remote from them and I am of a different religion, and the relationship gap is really wide. I am doing several things to close this gap. Improving relations, insulting their rivals, giving them military access, and the like. Because Burgundy has Denmark as a rival, I also set them up as my rival. This gives a small relationship boost. We still have over 50 points to go until we can ally Burgundy, so we need to become much stronger really fast. As Muscovy, one opening move I recommend is to vassalize Byzantium early on. We can only do it through war, and we don't have a valid casus belli on Byzantium, so we'll be declaring a no CB or no casus belli war on them. For that, we need military access from the Ottomans, Lithuania and Moldavia. They will only give you this access if you didn't set them up as your rivals, which is why I have only Denmark in my rivals right now. As long as you can access them, the war against Byzantium and Athens is super easy. What may come next though can make or break your game. The Ottomans have also declared on Byzantium, so if I vassalize them now, it will bring me into a defensive war against the Ottomans. I had already hired the Grand Company mercenaries, and along with my vassal armies, I feel strong enough to win this war. With no fleet to blockade the straits, I define winning as gaining any territory on the European side of Bosphorus. The Ottomans' armies are very strong this early in the game, so my approach is to keep my armies together, set my vassals to attach to my armies, and go after isolated Ottoman stacks to win as many battles as I can. The only fort I want to besiege is their capital, which is conveniently located on the European side. At the start of the war we have 45,000 troops against the Ottomans' 30,000. My vassals still haven't arrived, so I'm being super cautious with my first engagements. I absolutely cannot allow the Ottomans to besiege Constantinople. Fighting the enemy on a friendly fort is a good way to gain positive post score. My vassal armies finally arrive all the way from Russia, and now I'm feeling much more comfortable. In this scripted event, I prefer to bring my king Dmitry back from his exile. We continue keeping our armies close and fighting the Ottomans only when we know we can win. This far, we have won every single battle. In result, Ottomans never have an army big enough to challenge us even when trying to relieve their own sieges. Yeah, this area is not much better than our current king. Eventually, the Ottoman capital falls. And after a few battles, we're ready to sign our peace agreement. We return the entire Aegean coastline to the Byzantines, and we get one province on the Adriatic. I'm pretty happy with that. Within the first 7 years of the game, we got access to the Mediterranean and Black Seas, and we have crippled one of our biggest threats, the Ottomans. We have denied them a large part of their mission tree, and we will not have to fight this green monster with endless manpower and money mid or late game. One thing to watch out though. With the Ottomans crippled, Austria, Hungary or Poland can grow really strong, really fast. What I'm doing now is a quick war against Epirus. They are allied only to Ragusa, and my new vassal Byzantium has a valid casus belli on them. It's a super easy war, which gains us 2 nice provinces and denies them to Venice, for example. Our Muscovy now has a whole lot of vassals, some of which are becoming disloyal. It's an early introduction to the skill we will have to master in this playthrough, which is keeping a whole multitude of various vassals of different types in check and running at least the first part of the game well above our diplomatic limit. After growing our power base, we are just a little bit closer to allying Burgundy. We set our attitude towards them as friendly, and we continue improving relations. Now that my armies are back in Russia, I am ready to fight Novgorod, and I've activated the first mission of our tree, which is one of the missions that makes Russia so powerful in this game. I strongly recommend choosing the second option, with co-creation cost reduction and extra diplomats. This mission has given us temporary claims on Novgorod. These claims will expire within 25 years, which is why I didn't want to activate this mission before. And we declare for Novgorod itself, bringing in Adoyev as co-belligerent. As all this military activity going on, we continue improving with Burgundy, England and others in Europe. This war is incredibly easy, and in the peace deal, we isolate what remains of Novgorod from their neighbors. After 10 years of doing everything possible, and after scornfully insulting France, we are almost able to ally Burgundy. Their desire for alliance fluctuates between -1 and +1 all the time, and I have to catch the exact moment when they are ready to sign this alliance. After this, importantly, we send them the royal marriage request, and they accept. Tver is next on our to-do list. Because Rязань is a tributary of Great Horde, we don't co-belligerate them, although we do intend to annex them. This is another easy war, because early in the game the war score is really high. We have to annex Rязань first. As you can see here, we are getting quite overextended, and we have to slow down with our expansion for a while. We can still annex Tver though, and get their money. We're now slightly above 100 on our overextension. This isn't a problem right now because we're still small, but later on we may be going on up until 300% overextension, so we'll need to prepare for that. We need to keep expanding, and Livonian Order is a great candidate. Owning this land opens the Scandinavian branch of our mission tree, will help us dominate the Baltic trade node, and if we manage to grab Danzig, we will prevent the formation of the Commonwealth. Danzig now belongs to the Teutons, who are allied to the Livonians. For our second government reform, I'm going to take this unique Russian ability, which makes my government power grow faster. The Russian government power allows me to equip Streltsy and lower autonomy and unrest in my territories. I forgot to mention, just before this war I managed to ally Austria and carry enough favors with them to bring them into this war. But the poor Austrians are getting kicked by the Teutons. If I want Danzig, I have to go all the way down south and fight there myself. After annexing Riga and besieging a whole lot of Teuton forts, and they have a lot of them, we peace out the Teutons for Danzig. After that, we are going to fully annex the Livonians. Because we are fighting now Catholics of Germanic culture, a coalition of European countries is starting to grow. I have to accept this because these lands are very important for my progress. I will have 2 strategies to counter this coalition. First, I will take espionage and later diplomatic ideas. And second, I will be creating a very strong alliance network. I'm coring so much land that I'm really falling behind on my administrative power. Normally it would be a good idea to release this land as a vassal, but I'm now on a mission to reduce the number of vassals I have. You can see here that I have already annexed Pskov and Yaroslavl. And I'm improving relations with Rostov, Perm and Belaozera to annex them also. We have now grown powerful enough for the Tatar yoke to get cancelled. We no longer have to pay this annoying tribute. I intentionally avoided fighting the hordes because my armies are not strong enough yet. More and more Catholic countries are joining the coalition against me. However, in this guide you will see that it's possible to do a world conquest without triggering a coalition even once. I have spent a few years to let my aggressive expansion die out a little bit and catch up on technology. After that, the second war against Novgorod is easy peasy. I am fighting the hordes now for 3 reasons. First, I want the aggressive expansion with the Catholics to go down. This needs to be done very carefully though. If I piss off my neighbors, both in the west and in the east, then everyone will join the coalition, and I will literally have nowhere to expand. Second, I want to make my way down south and to the east so I can pull trade back home. And third, I realized that I don't have the relentless push east achievement, so I thought why not get it while making this World Conquest guide. I also need to use up the claims from my missions, which expire every 25 years. While I was chasing around the Kazani armies, my painstaking efforts to ally and royal marry Burgundy paid off. Although this event is really random, I've got it every single time in my 3 test games while preparing to record this video, which is why I decided to keep it as part of this guide. This is not the biggest Burgundy ever. For example, we will need to connect its lands in the middle, but I'm very happy, it's a lot of free development in the middle of Europe. My peace deal with Kazan includes Zlatoust, which is the gold producing province here in the east, Kazan itself for the trade center, and a couple of other provinces just to fill up the war score. After I develop my new gold mine in Zlatoust, I'll be able to finance even faster expansion. Somehow, in the middle of my war against Provence to connect my holdings in Europe, Lorraine takes the war leadership on the enemy side. I have no idea what happens, but I don't mind. We are fighting a large enemy alliance. But because we also keep allying large European countries, we have 3 times as many troops as they do. That is in fact a solid strategy for the world conquest. First, only fight easy and quick wars that you know you're going to win, unless a unique strategic need compels you to attack someone large, like for example when you need to enforce a personal union on someone big. Second, choose 2 or 3 powerful countries as your permanent alliance. The idea is not to backstab them later on and break this alliance. Instead, the idea is to royal marry them, carry a whole lot of favors, grow your trust with them to 100%, and eventually either put your dynasty on their throne or accept their dynasty on your throne, so you can enforce your PU over them. In this game, I'm going to try the strategy with at least 3 or 4 European countries: Austria, Castile or Spain, England, Hungary, and maybe Portugal eventually. After piecing out the enemy allies one by one for only money, prestige and war reparations, we now take what we actually wanted from this war in the first place, which is these 2 provinces connecting our lands between the northern and southern Burgundian blobs. We are now strong enough to ally England. Overall, I want to ally big European countries on the periphery, England, Spain, so I can directly conquer everything in the middle. As you can see, my economy is not doing very well. I'm losing almost 7 ducats a month, which is not unusual for an early Russian game. I'm also having to support the Burgundian loyalists to keep its liberty desire down. But not for long. Here comes the event for which I've stayed at peace, mostly, for the last few years. The Duchess of Burgundy dies and you inherit the lands directly. This event has a relatively short mean time to happen. It can trigger up to 40 years after you PU Burgundy, and you have to be at peace for it to happen. To fully benefit from this development, we concentrate on full core all the new lands. Because Burgundy has been diplomatically integrated, so to speak, we don't need to spend administrative mana to core this. This will boost our monthly income and manpower. I'm taking these Russian missions very carefully, because the claims they give are temporary. I only take these missions when I'm ready to fight my next war. For example, I'm not clicking off the Invade Novgorod mission, which will give me claims on Ruthenia, until I'm ready to attack Poland-Lithuania. Look, our religious unity is only 52%, which means we have a lot of Catholic lands. One perfectly valid strategy right now would be to attack into Poland or Sweden to make sure that Catholic provinces are over 50% of our development. This will give us the opportunity to trigger Catholic rebels, accept their demands, and make Catholicism the official religion of our country. Then we would ally, appease, and maybe vassalize the HRE electors and try to become the Holy Roman Emperor. This is one way to get the Triple the Rome achievement. However, this will disable a lot of unique Russian abilities, and to me personally, a Catholic Russia just doesn't feel right. To complete the first stage of our world conquest, we need to neutralize a strong and hostile neighbor, Poland-Lithuania. In your campaign, you may have done it much earlier. Personally, I waited until I have a strong alliance network. Hungary is a valuable ally in this case. They've grown massive under my protection, and unless I can PU them, later on they will create a sizable challenge. Unlike England though, who usually sits with their thousands of troops on the island, Hungary directly joins the fight and they distract a lot of the enemy troops. In the middle of the war, the famously mistranslated Ivan Grozny joins my court. He is indeed a formidable ruler with 656, so I'm super happy to make him my next illustrious leader. With Ivan in power, we can finally complete the strong leadership mission, which gives us the all-important reform progress growth, offsetting the debuff we have from the pre-installed privilege of местничество that gives minus 33% to the reform growth. We've had pretty weak leaders so far, and we have not been able to revoke that privilege. For the last 20 years or so, I've been working pretty hard, trying to place my dynasty on the thrones of my European allies. I've used 90 favors to put my dynasty on the Austrian throne already, and now I'm trying to do the same with Castile. This pretty intense war has lasted 3 years, and we have been able to accumulate 100% war score. I am satisfied with this peace deal, which offers me a bunch of Orthodox lands and isolates Poland-Lithuania from a bunch of countries in the south. I've also taken Kiev, which has a nice trade center, and the Kievsko-Pechorskaya Lavra, which in the game terms offers increased tolerance of the true faith and the yearly Patriarch authority growth. The true faith tolerance really helps the world conquest by reducing the rebellions. By now, I have annexed all my vassals apart from Byzantium, and I have also vassalized a one-province minor Avignon in the middle of the southern France, thinking I can annex it and release Provence out of it, because Provence has a lot of cores on France. This turns out to be a mistake, because I don't bother Avignon, I cannot annex it diplomatically. Securing our home base wouldn't be complete without conquering Finland. I've been waiting for 80 years for Sweden to break free from its personal union under Denmark. And although Sweden has been sitting at 100 liberty desire, it has remained a subject. Maybe because only Scotland, Poland and Venice support its independence. At this stage, these are not strong countries. I don't yet have a strong fleet, so it will be a difficult war for me, because I will struggle to take the Danish capital of Sealand. I can only hope that England will join this war after I declare it, although from experience in this campaign so far, England has been nothing but useless in my wars. And yes, they're ready to join, so who knows, maybe they will send their fleet to help. Our attacking alliance has doubled the troops versus the defenders, so I'm still within my strategy of only declaring those wars I can win for sure. But without the fleet, I'm stretching it. Austria also joins in, making it even easier for me. 5 years later, Austria drops out of the war early, and the English troops are nowhere to be seen. I'm also almost out of my manpower, so I decide to peace out for what I can, even though it doesn't give me the full Finland. We'll come back to fight another day. These territorial acquisitions enable me to meet the requirements for the Land of Churches mission, where I must have 20 churches in my land, and because I have the icon of St. Nicholas on, I get the 10% co-creation cost discount for the next 25 years. Awesome! In your game, you may want to release Finland as a vassal, because it will give you a strong cavalry mercenary regiment, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce. In my case, I just want the land. I don't see Finland as a strategic location for a vassal. And because I will soon complete the religious ideas, I will have an excellent Deus Vult casus belli against my Scandinavian neighbors, and I don't need the few remaining Finnish claims. My economy is still not very strong, so I keep mothballing my forts during the peacetime. Just as I was about to wrap up the first part of this video, something nice happened. Austria peacefully fell under our personal union. If you remember, they already had our dynasty, Rurikovich, and for the last few years they had no heir. If I recall correctly, the tooltip told me that I would have a succession war over Austria with Hungary, but it looks like Hungary has chickened out in the face of my alliance. I considered crashing my game to avoid this development. After all, I'm making a guide and my actions should be reproducible, but in the end I decided to just let it stay. I've done 3 or 4 world conquests as Russia and Byzantium, and in each I was able to PU either Austria or Bohemia or Hungary. The fact that I didn't have to fight for this PU is simply RNG. Let's recap where we are in our current campaign. We are now in 1516. So 72 years after the start of the game, and we have completed the first stage of this world conquest, secure the base. We have consolidated our home area, the Russian area over here. We have stopped the Ottoman expansion by vassalizing Byzantium at the start of the game. We've made a bet on RNG, and we've been able to get the Burgundian inheritance, even though it's RNG dependent, it's predictable, and I'm sure you can replicate it also. And we have been lucky in this case with our PU on Austria after installing our dynasty on their throne. We have also started to control our neighbors, Poland, Lithuania and Sweden with Denmark, and we have made our first inroads into the east. We have also prevented the formation of a very powerful Commonwealth by taking Danzig out of Poland's grasp. Overall though, despite our relaxed and measurely expansion pace, we are well on track for the world conquest. 2 factors have been slowing me down all this time. First, I didn't want to accumulate too much aggressive expansion with my neighbors. And second, I've always been at the limit of my governing capacity. As Muscovy, I'm locked to the duchy because of the Russian Principality government reform. To increase my rank and get more governing capacity, I need to form Russia, which I can do at the admin technology 10. Even though our gains on the map may not look so impressive, we're the first great power. We have twice as much development as France, who is the second greatest power. From here, we're ready to start the second stage of our campaign. That will last between now and about 1600. One small tip for coalition control. Small countries on your front line, such as Kazan over here, whom I have attacked but couldn't annex completely, are almost 100% guaranteed to join a coalition against you. They're also very likely to be the ones to declare the coalition war. So before moving on, I like to clean up the small states and integrate them into my growing empire. This war reminded me that I don't yet have the achievement called Relentless Push East, where you have to control the Siberian Pacific coastline after starting as one of the Russian miners. I also have a whole lot of temporary claim here in the Caspian area from my missions, so the tribes of Nagai seem like the natural area for my next expansion. Both the Russian mission tree and the Orthodox religion give us a lot of nice events and missions which keep improving our religious control. This mission, for example, reduces the cost to lower the war exhaustion until the end of the game. It also gives us some patriarch authority. In turn, high patriarch authority means stronger missionary power, less revolts and more soldiers. After getting Nogai's allies out of the war, I prioritize taking the lands for which I have already the claims, because this will mean faster coring time and lower coring cost. In 1519, at Admin Technology 10, we can form the Russian nation. Russian ideas are average for the world conquest, but they're better than the Muscovite ones, so going to take the Russian ideas and traditions. Now that we're Russia, a new section of our mission tree shows up. The mission of Founded Tsardom kicks it off, which gives us some nice temporary modifiers. These missions will eventually change our technology group and separately later our military unit types from Eastern to Western. I will show you later how our army will have the highest quality in the world. Becoming Russia also gives us access to this new modernization mechanic that will eventually replace our 3 current government abilities with 3 new ones. The implementation of this mechanic currently is bugged. For example, it tells you that advisors of non-Eastern European culture will accelerate this modernization progress, but they don't. I have an advisor of Walloon culture, but he has no impact on my modernization. To accelerate the modernization, we basically need to remove as many estate privileges as we can. It's a bit unfortunate because we will lose quite a bit of benefits, but it's also necessary in preparation for the upcoming absolutism age, where we will be removing these privileges to get the maximum absolutism. It's also why it's paramount that you have adopted the privilege of increased peasant freedom, rather than enserfing your peasants, because now you have plus 0.5 modernization progress and not minus 0.5 as you would have had otherwise. These privileges are not revocable manually, you can only get rid of them via scripted events. For my first 3 idea sets, I have taken Espionage, Religious and Offensive. Espionage and Offensive increase my sieging ability, so the enemy forts will fall much faster, and Espionage and Religious reduce my aggressive expansion impact, minus 20% from Espionage and minus 25% more from the religious casus belli of Deus Vult against everyone with another religion, and because we are Orthodox, everyone around us is of another religion. Religious ideas also help me save my diplomatic points, because I don't need to spend them on my peace deals, and they give me an extra missionary and some religious conversion power because I have a lot of wrong religion provinces. And finally, taking the Russian ideas has given us the Siberian Frontier ability. where we can use the diplomatic power we have saved to start new colonies, as long as they are in direct land connection to our capital. These colonies are completely free. Later on, we can use this ability to colonize Africa, for example, and if we move our capital to the Americas, we can also colonize the Americas. We have one missionary by default, one from our religious ideas, and one from being the defender of the Orthodox faith. So we've been very active converting our own religion provinces to increase our religious unity. Between wars, I like having the icon of St. Nicholas on, because it helps keeping my country out of coalitions. During the wars though, I usually put the icon of St. Michael. It gives my boys on the front line extra discipline and manpower recovery speed. Also, St. Michael has excellent events, giving me a lot of manpower. As Russia, you will get several events, allowing you to choose your government reforms. For example, here we are choosing between Tisitsky and Namestnik. For role-playing reasons, you may want to know that Tisitsky was an elected representative of the peasantry of the area, and the Namestnik was the direct representative of the crown. As much as I personally like democracy, in the game terms, I believe that the Namestnik reform is stronger. And we can now choose this mission, giving us less unrest and faster reform progress growth for the next 25 years. Anyway, we continue our expansion, and in our second war against Poland-Lithuania, we take a bunch of lands on which we already have claims. Your game may look very different on this stage than mine. The later we go in the game, the less detailed I'm going to be, because it's impossible to predict every game outcome. So I'm going to indicate the main directions of my expansion and the thinking process behind it, so you can draw your own conclusions and make informed choices for your own game. My overall idea at this stage is to expand south and east, which is why I have just attacked the Ottomans. I want to focus my expansion on the Near East and India, so I can pull their very rich trade to my home trade node of Novgorod. My missions also require me to eliminate the hordes in the area of Caspian and Black Seas. Astrakhan, Crimea and Nagai are the three hordes remaining, and with this one war I can eliminate Astrakhan and Crimea. Russia offers a lot of unique government reforms, which was a great innovation in 1.35, offering a lot of replayability. For our Tier 5 government reform, I'm going to choose this one, establish the Streltsy. This will make us special units Streltsy stronger and cheaper. We can now also abolish the местничество. This cancels the old family-based principle of staffing for the government positions and helps Russia make one step towards meritocracy. This gives us a bit of modernization and government reform progress, which is always nice. Of the three special Russian government abilities, I like using third one, Equip Streltsy. It gives my Streltsy regiments infantry combat ability, gives me some manpower and reduces my war exhaustion. All excellent benefits. To complete this war, we annex Crimea, Astrakhan, and take what we can from the Ottomans, making our lands more connected. This completes our Black Sea access mission, which gives us better religious tolerance, less unrest and more missionary strength, as well as a bunch of claims in Caucasia. We continue using our Siberian frontier, and soon we will complete our relentless push east. One of our missions gave us a scripted conquistador, Prokopy Shuvalov. I put him in charge of 3 Cossack regiments and sent him to explore Siberia. I keep trying to replicate my Austrian success with a peaceful personal union by constantly renewing my royal marriages with Hungary, England and Castile, but so far, no luck. Hungary is growing strong and big, and I need their land for one of my important missions, so if I'm not successful relatively soon, I will need to break my alliance and attack them. In the middle of the 16th century, our economy is solid, we are making money, and we continue progressing down our mission tree. As I continued making gains, Hungary, unfortunately, broke their alliance with me, and they don't want to royal marry me. And that is happening exactly when they have no heir. And as such, I've just missed my opportunity to have a potential personal union with them. Also, I just noticed that my relations with Austria fell below 0. This is actually an emergency. If my ruler dies when the relationships with my junior personal union partner are below 0, this partner will break free. So I need to use one of my precious diplomats to bring the relationships back up. Also, Castile is heirless, and I'm carrying favors like crazy to place my heir on their throne, just like what I've been able to do with England, where I used 90 favors to place my heir. I can have 72 Streltsy regiments and 16 Cossack, which is over half of my land force limit right now. Using the macro builder, I'm filling up my army with these powerful special units. For my government reform tier 6, I'm taking this one, General Estates, which gives me faster government reform progress, more estate loyalty than influence, because I keep revoking the estate privileges to accelerate my modernization. In line with my strategy, I'm pushing south and east by fighting the Timurids and Uzbeks. By the way, I forgot to mention one thing. In this game, I'm having to very carefully balance the Dutch revolts. I have accepted all the relevant cultures, and I have to keep my stability at 2 or above for the Dutch revolt disaster not to progress. I cannot move my capital to the lowlands. I need to keep it in direct access to my Siberian colonies, so I can colonize all the way to the Pacific and get the Relentless Push East achievement. As soon as that achievement is done though, I will move my capital to Den Haag. By annexing Nogai, I complete Destroy the Hordes mission. This gives me 100 power projection, morale of armies, global monthly devastation, and global prosperity growth for 100 years. In a bizarre plot twist, as I grow stronger, Hungary stops hating me and they're ready to royal marry and potentially ally me again. So why not? Maybe I will be able to PU them. The ruler of Castile is 66 and he's still without an heir. At this stage I'm really curious what is going to happen here. The tooltip tells me that my dynasty will succeed to the throne when this ruler dies. That would be awesome. From those back we take as many of our claims as would fit into the peace deal. Because of my idea choices and my pacing, no coalition will form. I'm only fighting the Oirats because I want that push east achievement. There is no strategic need to go that far east so early. And our peace deal takes us almost all the way to the Pacific. And now we can colonize a lot of Siberia very fast. One potential strategy, since my troops are already here in the east, would be to fight the Chinese and Korean kingdoms right now, before they grow too strong. Especially Korea tends to develop itself to the moon and back in the latest patch. In this campaign I'm not going to do this, because then I would need to push my trade through Girin and Siberia, which is not ideal. Also, the leader of Castile is now 72 years old. And the tooltip, which shows the potential scenarios upon his death, has changed from my dynasty coming upon his throne to a succession war between me and France. So I'm bringing my troops from the Far East back to Europe in a hurry. We keep getting the Russian events as we conquer East. This one gives me mixed feelings. I'm glad my provinces will be richer, but it does into my governing capacity. We reach 100% modernization, and the Castilian leader is still alive, bless his soul. I respect his decision not to retire at the age of 73, but I'm in a sort of a limbo waiting for this eventuality. I don't want to be caught with my pants down fighting somewhere in India when the potential succession war with France fires up. The game decides to offer me a 001 heir, calling it the real me. No thank you. As I lined up my troops to fight France, King Enrique de Trastamara peacefully departed this world, leaving his country in my hands. France must have calculated the relative strengths of our alliances and decided to chicken out from the fight. In a defensive war like this, my alliance could field 2 to 3 times the amount of troops versus theirs. Now you can see why I'm obsessing over this PU so much. Being a Christian country, it's a valid strategy to get powerful countries such as Castile or Austria under my control with relative ease. To be fair, these PUs are not a must for a world conquest. I've conquered the world as a Confucian Ryukyu, unable to do any PUs. And I've done several world conquests as pirates or theocracies which cannot do PUs, but they sure do simplify your life. So if you're playing a Christian monarchy, I recommend trying everything possible to get several PUs in your campaign. An interesting trick which you can do here, as you accumulate vassals and junior partners, is to go to their mission tree and help them complete some of their missions which advance your own strategies. For example, Castile can get claims on southern Italy if they directly own the continental provinces of Aragon. So it's only logical that I decide to attack Aragon as soon as possible. In this case, Aragon is allied to a massive Hungary, which is also my ally. As you know, I have been carrying favors with Hungary for many years, aiming to place my heir on their throne. Now I can use some of these favors to ask Hungary to break their alliance with Aragon. We now have well over twice the amount of troops of our enemies, although most of the Castilian troops are nowhere to be seen. As usual, they're chilling out in the New World. I've stayed out of Europe with my wars for several decades, so I have very little aggressive expansion with the Christians, and in this war I should be able to take a lot of land. While we fight here in the west, I'm also sending a small detachment all the way to the east, so I can conquer and colonize the Siberian Pacific coastline. I don't want to spend my resources fighting France when I did not co-belligerate it, so I get it out of the war for some money. While I was preoccupied with France, Aragon has occupied most of Castile. So I've rushed my troops down here in the south to take leadership over this war. The war in the east is super easy, we get what we want really fast. On the other side, Tuscany and Aragon put up a very good fight, while my subjects and allies give a show of utter incompetence. 3 years later, I peace out Tuscany, breaking their alliances. In the next mission, I prefer to take the administrative focus, because at this stage I value the reform progress growth above many other things. I can now also pass Modernize the State mission, although the name is somewhat confusing. It has nothing to do with my modernization slider, it simply gives me some benefits for the innovativeness gain and institution spread. This reminds me that I haven't enabled my vodka monopolies yet, for which I need to develop at least 10 grain producing provinces to 6 or above in base production. I prioritize those provinces which already have 4 or above in production. Back to Aragon, we can now peace out for 100% war score, and we make sure to take all of their forts. These are mostly mountain forts, and I don't want to take them again. We are now following the Castilian mission tree, so we immediately transfer the continental provinces of Aragon to Castile. Both countries are Catholic Christian with Iberian culture, meaning we can expect almost no rebellions here. We had a short truce timer with France, and we can now attack them directly. Even though Avignon has created a lot of claims on France, we will attack with cleaning the heresy casus belli, because it reduces the aggressive expansion and allows us to take any province, not just the one on which we have a claim. You may have noticed that I don't like drawing out the wars for many years to get to 100% war score. Here in the Western Europe, we will not be able to take a lot of provinces anyway because of the very high aggressive expansion. So I'm happy to peace out France for these provinces over here. The heir, whom I put on the English throne with favors, is quite a bit older than the current king, meaning he can be childless when he comes to power. This is why I'm starting to build a fleet in case I can fight England and enforce my personal union on them. For now, I'm accepting the English calls to war, keeping in mind that soon I may be breaking my alliance with them. The next mission is up for grabs, giving us some patriarch authority growth. For the tier 7 reform, one extra free administrative policy feels good to me. After the Protestant Reformation, and because of my constant wars which bring war exhaustion and unrest, it's increasingly difficult for me to keep the Dutch revolts in check. I will need to move my capital to the lowlands as soon as possible. Luckily, I'm almost done colonizing the Pacific coastline. Thanks to the government reforms we have taken, we can enact 2 administrative policies right now. For free, from Poland, we keep taking the eastern provinces for now. After we gain our vodka monopolies, we get to decide the fate of our peasantry. Because we had increased their freedom from the very beginning, the new modifiers will keep making us more innovative. Here we got even faster modernization and a bunch of other good things. After building an army to at least 80% of our force limit, with some good army tradition, we can decide on the fate of the Streltsy. I always recommend the first choice with less shock damage received. And because we had a theologian, we get even more tolerance for the next 25 years. Pushing into the eastern Siberia gives us fantastic rewards. Not only we get an explorer, Vitus Bering, we also get 2 colonists for the next 100 years. This is new from the latest patch and I love it. I immediately send one of these colonists to finish colonizing the Pacific coastline. And the second one can go and try create a colonial nation in South America. Every time I get a new ruler, my Streltsy demand a payment. The more I give, the better they will fight. I am not fabulously rich yet, so I'm giving them a low payment for now. When my colonists arrives to the Pacific, I finally get the Relentless Push East achievement, 29 years ahead of the deadline and with no stress whatsoever. Diplomatic makes a great choice for the next idea set, mainly for the reduced war score of the provinces. We're coming to the time when we can be much more active with our wars. In this event, I like to take both Reform Treasury and abolish Carmlenia. After a bunch of wars in my immediate vicinity, I noticed that both Portugal and England don't have heirs. It's a royal marriage time for Portugal. I even decide to go all in with an alliance. As for England, I managed to secure another heir who becomes their king. In 1583, I had to fight an entire war just to humiliate France, my rival, so I can qualify for the Great Imperial Ambitions mission. This somewhat cumbersome mission requires you to take a decision first to proclaim the emperor title. This in turn changes your government to the fixed Russian Empire type. And that gives you a new set of Russian rule abilities, cheaper institution embracement costs, and more absolutism, governing capacity, and autonomy change, and of course, manpower. Then you can take this decision, which changes your technology group, but not your unit type, to Western. Pretty powerful if you ask me. With the newly unlocked mission branch, we can gain very powerful Western units also, with extra discipline as a cherry on top. For now, we can decide the fate of the governing senate. In this game, I decided to abolish it. This decision could have been a bug, because I couldn't take any missions which followed this. The 3 new Russian rule abilities are really powerful. They are powered by 3 separate pools of mana, and when you accumulate 50 mana in each of these categories, you can spend it to trigger certain modifiers. The first one, Enforce Absolute Rule, permits you to lose 15% autonomy in your provinces. This is great, for example, if you have just annexed a country and stated its lands. Usually, these lands would start at 60 autonomy and you can immediately drop it to 45. However, personally, I prefer to drop the autonomy manually, so I can grow my absolutism later on. If you accumulate this ability to the maximum, you will get 10% discounts both for the co-creation cost and development cost. Spending the second ability of Diplomatic Rule will boost your taxes by 20% and will make your ideas cheaper by 5%. This will also lower your estate loyalty by 10%. If you let it accumulate, it will give you 1 diplomatic reputation and better improved relations modifier, which stacks up well with one of your religious icons. The third one, Mobilize New Order Regiments, is a supercharged old Streltsy button. It will drop your war exhaustion, give you infantry compatibility and faster reinforcement. Critically though, it will give you a massive manpower boost. The higher your force limit, the more manpower you will get. And if you let it accumulate, you will increase your army tradition and will get a 50% harsh treatment cost discount, which, along with one of your icons and the Absolutism H ability, will mean you can harsh treat your rebels almost for free, boosting up your absolutism in no time. Let me just quickly illustrate how powerful this first ability is. If you let it accumulate, choose the icon of Christ Pantocrator from your religious menu. You will get a minus 20% development cost. And now you can develop for money and manpower really cheaply. Now let's look at the co-creation cost. You have minus 15% from your ideas, minus 15% from your very first mission, temporary minus 10% from some of your other missions, and minus 25% from your third administrative idea, and 10% from your new ability. That's 65 to 75% CCR before the absolutism kicks in, reducing the cost and time of coring your provinces. Instead of 3 years, you will be coring provinces in 1 year. And what does it mean? Very few rebellions, even if you go very high on overextension. Now, if you become the Emperor of China and the Emperor of the HRE, you will get 30% more. During all this time, I keep attacking the usual suspect. France, Poland, small nations in the east, Sweden. Like I mentioned before, I don't want Finland as a vassal, so I just take the admin. I kinda like this. One of my advisors disagrees with my next war and leaves my court. Makes me really feel like the warmonger I am. I believe this is the event which potentially removes the early serfdom if you had chosen it before. As you can see, it would delay your modernization by a few decades. I decided to roleplay a little bit and went with the second option, introducing the serfdom. Being Russia, we obviously need to colonize Alaska, no? After declaring my second war on Oirat for my claims, I noticed that England has an heir with weak claim. This means an excellent opportunity to claim their throne and enforce my union on them. I will need to break my alliance with England, but the chances are high that this weak claim heir will still be there 5 years later. I will not be able to compete with the English fleet on the seas. So my devious plan here is to ally Scotland and preload my troops on the British Isles. China in this latest patch is a mess. I actually refuse to play it until they fix it. Here, Jiangzhou has managed to grab the mandate. Right now, I just want a better access to Liang for later wars against the Chinese kingdoms. This completes the second stage of our campaign. Time for a quick stage 2 recap. I usually do world conquests as obscure miners such as Ryukyu, Gotland or Saluzzo, and my target is about 2000 development by the year 1600. Russia being as powerful as it is, we have over 3000 development at this stage, despite building a ton of town halls and expanding a fair deal via vassals and personal unions. We are always running just below our governing capacity limit. I don't like exceeding this limit because then I will get a lot of debuffs. I was expanding so fast that for my fourth idea group, I dropped diplomatic and took administrative for the 25% coring cost reduction. As another priority, I've been growing my crown land by seizing land and developing my provinces. I am overflowing with mana, especially the administrative mana. I can no longer develop my provinces because of the governing capacity, so I'm having to take my technologies way ahead of time or just waste it. Our few remaining vassals and personal union partners are loyal, affluent and helpful. In short, we're well ahead of schedule for the World Conquest, so much so that we're holding back and taking it easy. Alright, let's crack on with stage 3, taking us into the early 1700s. Having waited out the 5 years of truce with England, imposed on us after breaking our alliance with them, we have pre-landed our troops in Scotland, and we're ready to attack to enforce our claim on their throne. It's important that Scotland is our ally, and not just someone who gives us military access, because otherwise our troops will be black flagged, and they will not be able to fight. Unlike Castile, who usually spreads out its armies around the world, England usually keeps dozens of thousands of troops on their home island. We need to keep our own troops together until we eliminate this threat. This forces me to overstock my armies, losing a lot of troops to attrition, but I prefer this choice over being stock-wiped. England stubbornly refused my peace offers until I thoroughly defeated them and took a few of their colonial forts. Voila, we force our union and take all of their money. We can use this money later to pay back their debts and buy their loyalty. They obviously hate us, so the key priority now is to bring our relationships above zero into the green, not to lose this union when our ruler dies. Now, I'm not going for a one faith run this time, but it's a good idea still to create the Holy Synod, which gives me an extra missionary and a bunch of other Russia-relevant bonuses. I'm now fighting Hungary because I gave up on trying to personal union them. My missions give me a lot of claims on their lands, and conquering Western and Southern Slavs will enable me to create the massive Slavic culture group. I also don't want to have such a massive country in my backyard here in Europe. They are surprisingly strong, so in my first peace deal, I only take a few forts and trade centers. I don't like it that this chain of events is taking me ever deeper down the serfdom rabbit hole, so this time I'm choosing something more liberty-focused. Another day, another war with Poland, France, and a bunch of others. Hungary has so much high development land that even a 100% peace deal barely leaves a visible dent on their map. Attacking Tunis opens an expansion avenue down into Africa. Many of the Imperial Russian missions offer permanent modifiers. For example, this one, State Manufacturers, gives awesome benefits to 10 random provinces. In 1634, I managed to kick off the court and country disaster. Passing it will give me plus 20 absolutism. To trigger it, I need to stay at above 1 unrest for 3 years. As Russia, it's difficult to get unrest, so I'm sitting at 98 overextension for this time. Denmark and its vassals are next on the menu. Because of my governing capacity issues, I decided to take Norway as a vassal from them. Having slayed the Lion of the North, I get 10 Caroline infantry units in my capital Den Haag. Had I done this earlier, they may have been more impactful on my game. At this stage, it's more of a curiosity. I'm once again above my governing capacity. You can see here it's giving me a debuff in my administrative efficiency. For the next few years, I will just develop my country, fight the court and country disaster rebels, and maybe slow down a little bit on my conquests. I've managed to get almost 100% crown land. This gives me plus 15 absolutism and plus 80% government reform progress acceleration. I've enforced my religion on my subjects. Now I'm helping them convert their provinces to the Orthodox faith. At the same time, having built some governing capacity with town halls, I continue expanding south and east. The court and country disaster successfully completes in 1645. This way we can have the maximum administrative efficiency and still give out some privileges to our estates, for example the integration policy. I should not have let Hungary grow so large, in my vain hopes to put my dynasty on the throne. Now it's taken me several wars to bring them down, and every time I take a 100% peace deal out of them, they keep developing their remaining provinces like there is no tomorrow. The Mamluks are next, improving my trade situation. And then the Timurids, for the same reason. The Timurids had been allied to a lot of countries, all the way east to Bengal, so this was a little bit of a messy war with a lot of riding around. We are now in that part of the World Conquest where there isn't much strategy left. This is an endless cycle of attack, annexed, core, attack, annex, core, and so on. I'm never fighting more than a couple of wars at once. There is simply no need to, because the World Conquest is already guaranteed. When my governing capacity allows, I create more states for more income and manpower. The next peace deal with France gains us the provinces in Africa, Spice Islands, and of course in Europe. It feels like the Hungarian provinces will just never end. For a better trade setup, I've decided to annex Byzantium finally. They have served me faithfully since the very start of the game. This completes the third Rome mission for me, because it's now after 1650, the Dutch revolts will no longer fire, and I can move my capital away from Den Haag. After several decades of war, we are in 1710. This is when I finally give up, trying to make Portugal my junior partner. It feels like they haven't had a day without an heir, and I haven't been able to put my dynasty on their throne. So, when attacking the Papal States, I decided not to break Portugal's alliance with them, but to bring them into this war. I make a short truce with Portugal, so I can attack them soon, and from the Papal State I take as much as I can. Not much remains of Europe, basically the Germanic part of the HRE. They're next in line for integration. An interesting development occurs in 1718. A center of revolution shows up in Cairo, which is part of my lands. This presents me with a strategic choice. either embrace or reject this revolution. Were I going for a one faith world conquest, I would simply sit at stability 3 until the revolution goes away. But because this is a new patch, I find it amusing to play with the revolution dynamics. So why not? In this game, we will become a revolutionary Russia. The center of revolution works just like a religious reformation center. Every month, it converts 3 or 4 provinces to revolutionary. All we need to do is wait until at least 20% of our country has gone revolutionary, drop our stability, trigger the disaster, and embrace it. The expansion never stops. Always fighting, always taking land. I'm assigning each new piece as soon as the previous batch of provinces is scored. For many years, I've been between 100 and 200 overextension. Because of this, bad events are literally bombarding me every month. Some of them are fixable. For example, I can simply fire a good advisor and then hire him back. Others I just have to deal with. One simple trick to reduce the negative impact is simply not to click off these negative events immediately. Just pull them out of your way and let them auto-complete. This delays the new bad events by 3 or 4 months. Governing capacity remains the biggest bottleneck for now, so we simply keep building town halls and state houses pretty much everywhere. My country has not collapsed to rebels for several reasons. First, I've been using my 9 missionaries to constantly convert my provinces to Orthodox. Second, being Orthodox, I get a lot of unrest reduction in my Orthodox provinces, especially from religious tolerance, which I have accumulated a lot of with monuments and ideas. Third, I have been culture converting some provinces, not too many. Fourth, because of my co-creation speed, which is 1 year for the wrong culture provinces, some revolts never have time to mature. And finally 5, I've been overextended for so long that most revolts have already happened, and I have minus 100 revolt risk in a lot of provinces. Look, I'm religiously homogeneous right now. Of course this will not last as I accelerate my conquest. Soon I'll be taking the humanist ideas, as well as any government reform which reduces separatism. Each new province you conquer starts with 30 years of separatism, which corresponds to plus 15 points of unrest. You can bring that quite a bit down with ideas and government reforms. Europe is absolutely full of level 8 and 9 forts. I always prioritize them in the peace deals. If I have to take the same fort twice, I consider this an efficiency error on my side. Unless of course I'm fighting someone massive like Hungary used to be. When I get a horrible error like this, I scratch them out from my succession plans. Because of this, for most of the game, I've had excellent leaders. I've stopped caring about coalitions many years ago, so I'm taking land from the countries regardless if they're co-belligerent or not. Apart from town halls, I'm also building a lot of soldiers' households whenever I remember to do it. This helps me keep my manpower high. From Portugal, I first take all these annoying remote provinces with forts on the islands, so each of my next wars against them is less global. I can finally click off a bunch of colonization missions, which Portugal has been blocking me from. There is still a chance to cancel the revolution by going to 3 stability, and you may want to do that in your game if, for example, you're going for the one faith achievement. The revolution will make it more difficult, but in this guide we're going to embrace it. Alright, we have now caused the revolution in Russia. This menu here is the last chance to not become revolutionary and save your king. All you have to do is choose the first option in this event. You will get a bunch of revolutionary rebels and that's it. But we want to play with the revolutionary mechanic, so option 2 for us. This is what is going to happen. If you still have any alliances who are not republics or revolutionaries, they will break these alliances. 2. You will lose your estates. Instead, you will get revolutionary republican factions. You will also lose 3 very powerful Russian rule abilities, and you will have a different set of government reforms. Your government will change from monarchy to republic, with elections every 4 years, meaning you can easily get 6 rulers for quite a while. The absolutism mechanic will be replaced with revolutionary zeal that will grow based on how widely the revolution is spread in your provinces, meaning in the beginning it will be very low. Your armies will get extra morale, and in my case I'm also getting 671,000 manpower. We've lost a lot of governing capacity, we'll get some back through our government reforms. I'm rich enough to pay the full salary to my Streltsy, even if it puts me into debt for now. A couple of large stacks of pretender rebels rise up trying to bring their monarchy back. Pavel Pestel, who was historically a member of the Russian Union of Salvation, this man was hung by the Russian crown for his Decembrist revolutionary activities. In our alternative history, he is now in power. at an excellent age of 49, meaning we can have him for quite a while. We lost 2 out of our 9 missionaries, 1 because we cannot be the defender of faith anymore, and 2 because we lost the Holy Synod government reform. As for the government reforms themselves, we have a whole set of new ones. Unfortunately, this list is bugged for now. I had promoted the new order regiments before, and I cannot progress with some government reforms until that indicator expires, either in 1733 or 1750. While we are at -2 stability, we can pass the Cult of Reason decision, making our technologies 15% cheaper until the rest of the game, at the cost of extra unrest and some other small debuffs. For your special units, I recommend taking this one, Vanguard Revolutionary Guard training, because they receive 10% less both fire and shock damage. Excellent. It also feels right that St. Petersburg on the banks of Neva becomes our new capital. All this fun happened while I was sitting at 240% overextension. So now I have +24 revolt risk everywhere. +4 revolt risk will now be permanent from the Cult of Reason decision, and +10 is from being in the revolutionary disaster that is fixable by increasing our stability. While the disaster is active, we'll keep getting bad events like this. When the overextension is high, stability is very expensive to increase, so I waited to core most of my provinces before increasing my stability. To add the revolution disaster, I need to get my stability to +3 and get rid of all the rebels in my country. That will stop the violence and will solidify me as the Revolutionary Republic. I have so many rebels, especially on the recently conquered remote islands which I took from Portugal, that has taken me at least a couple of years to get rid of all of them. A positive event, finally, in the middle of this rebel madness. In 1734, I noticed that the block on the government reform progress has lifted, so I can choose whatever reforms I want. Although I had all reforms completed as monarchy, now I don't have enough progress for 3 more. Generally, I'm choosing those reforms which will give me less unrest, higher revolutionary zeal, and more governing capacity. Eventually, also cheaper co-creation. Being tired of fighting all these rebels, I decided to drop the espionage ideas. The benefits they give are no longer that relevant. Instead, I want to accelerate taking the humanist and quality ideas. I don't need much yet from my newly available parliament. Later, I will be talking the debate, which removes the negatives after annexing my subjects. Just keep re-electing your ruler, don't worry about the republican tradition. You can take a government reform, which gives you +5 tradition every time you win a war. Oof, in 1736 I finally eliminated all the rebels. The revolutionary disaster is now complete, and we have a democratic, revolutionary, republican Russia. If you want, you can switch to an empire with an emperor by dropping your republican tradition, but in this video I'm not going to do it. Our revolutionary zeal has set to the maximum possible 77%. It is so low because less than half of my country has embraced revolutionary ideas. As this grows, so will our revolutionary zeal. It will also grow from spreading the revolution outside of our country. 77 is low. It means I'm not getting my maximum administrative efficiency, which I used to before. As you can see, going revolutionary is not an obvious choice. It has excellent benefit, it has also some very big negatives. However, the main reason I have gone revolutionary is this casus belli, spread the revolution, which permits me to take enemy provinces at 50% of the cost. Along with the fully upgraded monument in Malta, which gives another 15% war score cost reduction, and diplomatic ideas, which gives another 20%. We now have 85% reduction on taking the enemy provinces in war. We also have 0% cost for unjustified demands, meaning we no longer pay any diplomatic mana for the separate peace treaties. And if a country has also turned revolutionary, we have a different CB on them, which offers the provinces for 25% of their cost, basically almost for free. This is how strong the special revolutionary regiments are. You can make them even stronger by drilling. Personally, I just never drill. From here we begin the stage 4 of our world conquest. People call it Blobomageddon. All you do is attack, core, and core. In the remaining time, I will attempt to give a couple of tips and strategies to make the stage easier and a bit more bearable. By now, you have unlimited money and manpower. Don't be shy to build millions of troops, literally, and have meaningful forces on each front you are fighting, west, east, south, north, so you don't have to run your armies across the map. In this part of the game, it's perfectly okay signing separate peace deals with all war participants. You are well past the danger of any coalition forming. The biggest bottleneck now is coring time. I'm coring something non-stop. When the previous batch of provinces is cored, I sign a new peace deal and load the new batch. If your overextension gets too high and you cannot be bothered dealing with all these revolts, just set up client states. They will core for you, and they may even convert provinces to your religion. you can just let them be until the end of the game, or if you're going for a one-tag World Conquest, don't forget to annex them before your game is up. Fill out the offensive, influence, humanist and quality ideas, as well as administrative of course. Apart from being excellent idea groups on their own, they offer fantastic policies. For example, offensive and humanist will reduce unrest and offer less years of separatism. Administrative and influence will give 15% diplomatic annexation cost reduction. Influence with quality will reduce this by the further 10%. And so on. If you want to convert your provinces faster to your true religion, build basilicas before sending your missionary. This will give you an extra 3 missionary strength. Don't be shy giving a lot of overextension to your client states. They will have massive revolts, but these revolts will be localized to their territory and will be easy to handle, instead of you running around the globe trying to squash them. Always prioritize taking forts in your peace deals. The late game is a lot about sitting on enemy forts, which I personally don't find that exciting. Whenever you can, concentrate development in the lands you've just taken. That will make coring so much cheaper. Because I've moved my capital from Moscow to Den Haag to Constantinople to St. Petersburg, I can do a lot of concentrating. If you are a republic like me, just keep re-electing your ruler. If your republican tradition falls too low, use your military points to strengthen your government. If you have your military ideas filled out, you will be mostly using your military mana to barrage forts anyway. And you will have a lot of it extra remaining. When you fully conquer and swallow an active colonizer, such as Portugal here, you will inherit all of their colonial nations. Large colonial nations will be disloyal and of the wrong religion, of course, most of the time. So it may make sense to take some colonial nations province by province, like I did here for example with Australia. I will now convert Australian provinces to Orthodox, core 5 provinces on this continent, and my own Australia, Orthodox and perfectly loyal, will get released. Look here. The 3 remaining colonial nations, which I had inherited from Portugal after conquering it, are highly disloyal, wrong religion, and even wrong colonial type. This late in the game, I like my colonial nations being crown colonies, because I can better control their liberty desire, and I can order them to increase religious control, after which they will start converting their provinces to my religion. I will need to wait for several years before I can change their colonial type to crown colony. For now, all I can do is pay out their debts, if any, improve relations, and placate their rulers, as well as decrease tariffs, because I really don't need any more money. I'm overflowing with money. If until now a sensible strategy was to attack smaller countries, so you can steadily grow without overstretching your capabilities, now is the time to start cutting down large countries in size. In my case, the largest remaining independent countries on the map are Somalia, Sunda, Korea, Liang, and a couple of large countries in India. My main armies will go against these large countries, while my smaller army groups will be cleaning up everyone else around the map. Here is just an illustration of what I talked earlier. My own Australia gets released, I set it up as a crown colony, and through the modify subject relationship menu, I can increase their integration with me and eventually increase their religious control. When piecing out large countries, like our good friend Somalia over here, I like isolating them from their neighbors, because otherwise they will just keep growing. Also, don't forget that they will keep developing their provinces, so sometimes fully annexing them will take you 3, 4 or even 5 wars. Even with all the buffs you currently have. 265 overextension, oof, I'm going to release another client state. Don't make the mistake I made. I forgot to upgrade some critical monuments. For example, Malta here, which gives up to 15% province cost reduction against the countries with another religion, which in our case is everyone. I guess the mission tree is pretty much irrelevant in this case, but permanent power projection, why not? I like integrating my PUs, starting from the colonizers, in my case Castile and England. This gives me more time to deal with the colonial nations, especially if I'm going for a one faith, for which I will need to enforce religion and convert. Castile has been Orthodox for many decades, but some of its colonial nations are still Catholic. Depending on your goals, you may or may not want to convert them. Ha, finally, the first institution which auto-spawned in our lands, the Industrial Revolution. After Somalia, the next big country in line is Delhi. I'm again isolating what remains of it from its neighbors. And same with Vijayanagar, even though it's already isolated by its own geography. I've decided to build a couple of lines of top-level forts in the most defensible locations, here around Siberia, before attacking Liang and Korea. These two countries will have a lot of troops, and I don't want chasing those around the map. This great power list can be a handy strategy guide in the end of the game. Just follow it from top down to choose your attack targets. Given my current efficiency, I can take about 900 development in one peace deal. If you didn't go revolutionary, you may have less. So as you can see, Korea, Sunda and Liang may need 3 wars for total annexation. In this game I became an economic hegemon. A hegemony is not needed, especially now that the military hegemony no longer gives extra administrative efficiency. After integrating England, I can finally put about 300,000 troops, which they have kept for decades on their peaceful island, to real action. I'm now always integrating someone, sometimes up to 2 or 3 vassals all at once. And because I don't have estates, after each integration, my diplomatic reputation is hurt. There is a debate in parliament, or Duma in my case, which cancels this negative effect. In 1772 I remember that I can westernize my army. I already meet all the conditions, apart from having 90% professionalism. And there we go. We now have western units with an extra 5% discipline. And if we look in the ledger, we can see that we have the highest discipline, morale, siege ability, professionalism and army tradition in the world. The 2 largest remaining countries, Korea and Liang, have allied each other. To make my life a little bit easier, I've decided to attack the tributary of Korea, Jin, over here. I wish Korea had more tributaries actually, so I can attack them one after another to fully annex Korea in a series of quick wars. While my troops are fighting the blue monster of the east, I wanted to complete my quick tips on controlling the colonial nations. As you see, 13 colonies, which I had inherited from England, is somewhat disloyal. You can do 4 or 5 things to bring them in line. First, set them as the crown colony. Second, placate their rulers. Third, support their loyalists. Fourth, give them your officers. And if you still need more loyalty, fifth, you can subsidize their armies. And pay their debt. You can also increase their integration via a separate command, but this will eat into your governing capacity. Because I've asked them to increase religious integration, you can see here all my colonies are converting their provinces to Orthodox. Unless you do that, they will not convert. Okay, we've taken all the Korean forts on the mainland and killed most of the army. I'm going to execute a simple trick that will eliminate them as a serious opponent forever. In the piece we take all of the annoying mountain forts and their capital, which is a level 10 fort, because of the Tripitaka Koreana mission which they have. After this, we dump these formerly Korean provinces to a client state. Don't make this client state too big. Korea develops their provinces up until 50 through their missions, and the large client state will become immediately disloyal and difficult to annex. And then we immediately declare on Oirat, who is also a tributary of Korea's. So we give Korea no time to rebuild their armies. Korea is powerful in this patch. In fact, they look very exciting to play. I can't wait to make a video about them. This second war is ridiculously much easier than the first one. And we quickly take the remaining forts on the Japanese islands and in Siberia, and we connect our previously conquered lands. Same thing for Liang. Basically, I pick out the forts and connect them with passages, committing the ugliest border war ever. Sunda offers a new challenge with all the island hopping, and with them cut in half, we really enter the last stages of the cleanup operation. And finally, in 1813, it's done. I don't like truce breaking, especially as a republic, so I waited out some peace deals. Upon annexing Vijayanagar and what remains of Sunda, who had gone revolutionary, we are officially done. We can now core the remaining provinces. In your game, if you haven't done a World Conquest yet, this is when you would be receiving the achievement notification. Almost 44,000 development, despite all the concentrating I've done. I think it's the highest development in all of my World Conquest so far. Clearly, the AI develops a lot in the latest patch. This run could give at least 3 achievements. It all belongs to Mother Russia, Relentless Push East and the World Conqueror. You may also get a whole lot of other achievements on the way. This time I did not go for triple the Rome achievement, because I don't believe it's efficient starting as Muscovy. If you are interested, I will link the video where I did it at the end of this one and in the description.